Whether you've been part of the video game scene for 3 years or 3 decades, there's a great chance you've at least heard of Plants vs Zombies, or if not, you've definitely played one of its developers' games. Whether it's Bookworm, Peggle, Bejeweled, Dynamite, or Mummy Maze, PopCap has been releasing highly regarded puzzle games for the better part of 2 decades. Released nearly 10 years ago back in 2009, Plants vs Zombies is a charming, easy to understand tower defense puzzle masterpiece that must be one of the most beloved games in the last decade. Everyone I've ever known who has played Plants vs Zombies has loved it, whether that's a sibling who doesn't play games at all, or a friend who's been playing them since they were 5 years old. And despite EA's purchase of PopCap 2 years later and their recent EA-fication of the series, nothing they can do can tarnish the original game's near flawless reputation. So how does it hold up nowadays? While Plants vs Zombies is a tower defense game at its core, it doesn't feel like any other game I've played in that genre, and I'm not sure if that's whether it's down to its charming presentation or abundance of modes and minigames that all have a unique twist on the game's formula. You start in the base mode, Adventure, which is the quote-unquote story of the game, and don't worry, it's very, very simple. You're in a house, there's zombies trying to eat your brains, and you have an arsenal of plants to stop them. Throughout the game you move between different sections of your house. You start on the lawn, which is the simplest, and levels get more complex as the locations change. For example, once you get to the backyard, there's a pool that takes up a couple of your rows, which means you need to place water-based plants on there, or you need to put a lily pad to put your regular ones on first, and there's other zombies that'll come through the water that wouldn't come on the grass. There's 5 variations across the game's 50 levels, and each require a slightly different style of play because of the plants that work best and the types of zombies that you'll encounter coming at you. Speaking of plants, there's a ton of them that you can unlock or buy with in-game coins throughout your playtime. Each one is unique with its own pros and cons, and I think this is one of the game's core strengths. No plant on the roster feels worthless, and each can do something that the other one can't. At the start of the level, you choose what plants you want to bring in with you, and you have a limited number of seed slots to fill up. You start with 6 and you can buy more as the game progresses. Each plant has an associated cost as well, so you want to bring in a wide variety with some that are inexpensive and some that aren't. For example, the watermelon flinging melon pulse are very, very powerful, but they're also very expensive. And for one of those you could place 3 of your regular pea shooters. So there's always decisions to be made that help keep the game exciting throughout. You place plants with sun, which can be generated through some of your own plants and also falls from the sky in the daytime levels. The game starts you out with a small amount at the start of a level, and it's up to you to manage your resources while also fending off the zombies lumbering across your lawn. I'm glad to say that the zombies are just as unique as the plants, with each one having its own abilities and will normally be susceptible to a type of plant in particular. You start with the regular garden variety zombie, and they only get more difficult from there. The ones that can take a ton of damage, like football zombie, to others with special abilities such as Jack-in-the-Box zombie, who can explode and destroy a lot of your plants if you don't kill them fast enough. It does sound like a lot to take in, I know, but you don't need to know every attribute of every plant and every zombie in the game to have fun. But if you do forget and want to scrub up on your knowledge, there's a charming little almanac that lists them all for you. Once you finish the adventure mode, the game really opens up, and then you can start unlocking more of the minigames, puzzles, and everything else that there is on offer. In the minigames, there's even some awesome callbacks to other PopCap games like Bejeweled and Insane Aquarium. And while the extra games and levels are great, I think my favourite thing to do after completing the adventure mode is to work in my Zen garden, a relaxing mode where you grow plants at a time in a virtual greenhouse. Sounds exhilarating, I know, but it's very satisfying to feed and grow your plants to full size. You can collect all of the plants you find in the regular game and grow them across multiple gardens, and it's easy to invest a lot of time into making it your own. Oh, and if that's not enough for you, there is a monetary reward for bringing them to their full size, which is a nice bonus. And obviously there's a shop where you can spend that money, and all the other money you've earned throughout the game. You can buy new plants to use in the adventure mode, new pot plants to grow in your Zen garden, and other niceties that you'll find helpful in your time with Plants vs Zombies. And you'll be glad to know there's no microtransactions here to be found, which is quite refreshing when compared to most of today's games. In short, there's a lot to do here, and while on the surface the game may look quite simple, in truth it is very fleshed out and it can take up a whole lot of your time if you let it. Plants vs Zombies soundtrack is easily half the reason why the game is so charming to begin with. It's all been composed solely for use in the game, and it suits its playful nature and light tone perfectly. All the while the soundtrack is playing in the background, you'll be hearing the groans of zombies as they make their way towards your brains. Each type of zombie has some sort of unique sound that you can associate with them, whether it's one when they get hit or when they arrive on screen. Example of this is the Jack-in-the-Box zombie, playing their menacing tune when they appear, signalling an immediate threat via the explosive contents of their Jack-in-the-Box. Not to be outdone, the plants also sound great and all of the effects sound appropriate for their abilities in the game. Like the explosions from the cherry bombs, which are aptly loud and impactful, and the flinging of watermelons from the melon pulps, which have a satisfying effect as they slam a zombie in the face. And while the game has practically no voice acting except for a few of the zombies talking about your brains, it never feels lacking due to the great effects, soundtrack, and ambience throughout, and you'll be doing yourself a favour by keeping the sound on throughout your time with the game. The post-launch story of Plants vs Zombies is kind of weird because the game actually received no DLC or expansions, only a Game of the Year edition that didn't really include much extra. What it did get though was many re-releases on basically every platform you can imagine, and some you can't, like the BlackBerry tablet OS. But unlike many games nowadays, I never felt that Plants vs Zombies ever actually needed any more content, as there was just so much included to begin with. All its minigames and puzzles were enough to keep players engaged for a long time, and even though I'm sure people wouldn't turn their noses up to more of a great game, it didn't feel like you were unsatisfied with what you'd received for your money. But like I said, even though there was a lack of DLC, there were a ton of re-releases. From Windows Phone to PlayStation Vita to Xbox Live Arcade, if you had a semi-modern console, computer or phone, it was extremely likely you were able to enjoy Plants vs Zombies on the device of your choice, which was great for getting the game out there. Hardcore gamers could buy it on Steam and play it on a $3,000 gaming PC, and ultra casual ones could play it on their iPhones while waiting to get a haircut. Though some see re-releases as publishers just scraping the bottom of the barrel for a bit of extra cash, I was perfectly happy to see Plants vs Zombies on as many platforms as possible, as it's just as enjoyable playing it now as it was back then, and it means it's super easy to get your hands on today. Plants vs Zombies is just as fun playing it now than it was 9 years ago, without question. Even for someone like me who's played it for many hours across many devices. As I was replaying it for this video, I found myself forgetting I was recording it and was just getting back into it like the old days. It's a great game for everyone, whether you're the casual gamer or a long-time member of the PC master race. And not only is it super fun, it can be played on basically any modern device, so if you have an iPhone, an Android, a PC, an Xbox or an iPad, you'll be able to pick it up and be up and running in minutes. One thing I can recommend is that if you have an iOS device, specifically an iPad, the HD version of the game will look a lot crispier than the PC one I've been recording for this video. Plus, it does play really well on a touchscreen. So pick up your favourite device and get out there. Those zombies want to eat your brains, and you don't want that. I hear they're quite important. Thanks for watching everyone, see you next time.